Hello folks, I'm Alex, this is Alex Unabridged, and this is my GARBAUGUST Wasted Weekend Wrap-Up. So welcome back to the channel if that is the case. Yes, I've got a quick wrap up for you today for the 3 books that I managed to devour during the wasted weekend that we've just had on 17th and 18th of February. I had a very fun time, again, as usual, with trash. So I shall get to those 3 books in a moment. But first of all, I just want to share a little bit of exciting news, exciting for me anyway, in that the story that I submitted to the Garbology anthology of trash that's being put together by Troy and Ollie, my story got accepted, yay! So yeah, I'm really excited about that and can't wait to see it in its final published form, along with over 30 other fabulous trashy stories as well. So save some pennies for August when the collection comes out, if you fancy some wonderful trashy short stories. So I've shared that news, so yay. Now I will get on to the books. 3 books. All of these were either Kindle Unlimited or Audible Plus stuff, so they're all modern stuff and they're all digital stuff. I've got ratings for them as well, but yes, the Trash Pandas from GARBAUGUST are back, my little Trash Panda awards. So these are my measures of how trashy something is, as well as the kind of the rating, if you like, the normal rating that I would give it out of 10. So just quickly to recap on those Trash Pandas, we've got the Bronze Trash Panda is just a little bit trashy, not really that trashy, but maybe a little bit. Silver Trash Panda is moderately trashy, good amount of trash. And the Gold Trash Panda is super mega trashy, as trashy as can be. So I will give a Trash Panda award as well to each book. So first up then, we've got an audiobook from the Audible Plus catalogue, and that was Wasteland Warlords by James Hunter and Eden Hudson. This was my first lit RPG. So lit RPG is literary role-playing game, or literary RPG. So it combines kind of, in this case, sort of fantasy stuff, really, a bit of sci-fi as well, perhaps, a story where essentially there's usually like a game world of some sort in it, and it uses game mechanics, video game mechanics, sort of within it. It's not like a choose your own adventure type thing. It's taking like elements of game structure, etc., from video games and bringing it into the novel. It's my first lit RPG. And yeah, it was a good fun little one to introduce me to this very niche genre. So this is set in a future kind of post-apocalyptic America, where a video game world has merged with our world, with the real world, and there are these big areas that are kind of essentially walled off by the government, called infested zones, where the worst of the kind of the game world has bled through, has merged. And folks go into these infested zones where there are fantasy sort of sci-fi creatures and dungeons and bosses like you find in a video game, to kind of clear them out and look for loot and to gain otherworldly powers and level up and all that kind of stuff that you'd get with a video game. And we follow a band of 3 characters, Clay, his wife Alex, and his brother Joe, as they kind of make their first foray into one of these infested zones, train themselves up to try and take on a dungeon boss, in the hope of taking the boss's specific power to help Alex, who's got a pretty major health problem. So yeah, this was really good fun. This was surprisingly good fun. It's a great short sort of introduction, I think, into the lit RPG stuff. It's not, you know, too much at once. It's about 3.5 hours long on Audible. It was narrated by Travis Baldry, who was fabulous as always. So yeah, I mean, the characters are quite larger than life, very fun. They're archetypes, really, you know, but there was an emotional core to them and the story throughout. You know, so that kind of helped balance out the kind of the more ridiculous stuff, or the more kind of stereotypical elements of the characters. The atmosphere was really good. The world building was pretty good. It had kind of quite a nice sort of Wild West frontier feel about it, especially in the sort of the little town that's just outside the infested zone, where all the kind of like players or looters or, you know, explorers, etc., adventurers kind of base themselves. There's quite, you know, kind of a Wild West frontier feel to that. But there's a real good, clear video game feel to the infested zone as well. There are a few little bits where I wasn't entirely sure of what maybe a creature was, or some elements of the world where there wasn't necessarily there wasn't an explanation for some of the jargon, things like that. Not the game jargon, because I understand that because I'm a gamer, but some of the world specific jargon, lore, things like that. But that didn't really take anything away from it. It didn't leave me kind of like confused beyond just momentarily, oh, what's that? But it kind of, you know, it all just feeds into kind of the atmosphere, the setting, etc. So I just kind of let it wash over me a bit, and it, yeah, as I say, it didn't affect the enjoyment of it. The writing was solid. Some really good funny dialogue that is funny on this one. The description generally was pretty good. Certainly of the game areas. The infested zones, and the action was really good, actually, very dynamic action. The inclusion of some of the game elements, such as like character and weapon stats, that the characters within this can kind of like see. They get like a little sort of bit of equipment that allows them to kind of, you know, look at one another and see kind of stats and effects and all that kind of stuff, character levels, experience levels, you know, buffs and debuffs, all that kind of stuff. That was balanced well, I think, in the general overall story. It didn't like overstay its welcome. It wasn't overdone. I think you know, you need to be a gamer, I think, to kind of enjoy that element, most definitely. And I think it could, you know, it could alienate if you're not a gamer, but then I'm going to imagine that most readers of this kind of thing are going to be people with some knowledge of video games or tabletop RPGs, things like that. So I don't think it's a negative on it at all. It was very fast and pacey. It had really punchy dialogue, as I say, and a well-structured plot. It held together really well. I think the silliness of it is what really made it fun. Joe, the brother of the three, of Clay, the main character, Joe's a very fun character, very, very over the top. He's a chainsaw wielding, jort wearing, beer drinking, kind of lovable loudmouth, and yeah, he you know, he works really well with the humour, and the creatures are all pretty ridiculous in it as well. But there are actual panda-sized cyborg raccoons with flamethrower arms, and so, you know, what more could anyone want, really? So yeah, it as I say, it was a really good, quick, fun read, and I'll definitely read more of this series. I'll come back to it probably in August, because I think pretty much all the series are on Audible Plus, and I think there might be Kindle Unlimited as well if you want them as text, as ebooks. So my score for this one is a 7 out of 10, and a 3.5 stars. And it's a gold trash panda. I mean, it's got actual mecha trash pandas in it, so yeah, it's got to be a gold trash panda, really, hasn't it? So yes, highly enjoyable introduction to lit RPGs for me. So book number 2 then, and that is Methalodon by Hugo Navikov. Yes, this is exactly what you think it is. A megalodon shark, one of 2 escaped megalodons that were the results of a DNA experiment to raise the prehistoric beasties from extinction. One of these swallows a submarine full of drugs, which is part of a smuggling operation belonging to a drug kingpin called Elgato. The pilots of the submarine ejects some of the drugs from within the sub whilst they're stuck inside the Meg stomach to try and make it vomit the sub out, but it just sends the Meg crazy because the drugs are meth and coke. The drugs also get into the ocean as well and affect the other marine life that goes crazy. Cue a washed up celebrity fisherman and a marine biologist researcher dude who are kind of pushed into trying to retrieve the drugs from inside the Meg by this villainous Elgato. And if they don't, the drug lord has promised to kill everyone on a remote desert island. So yes, one word for this really, and that's batshit. Which is what I expected and what I wanted going in. So success in that respect. There's a lot of let's say homage paid to books like The Meg or Meg by Steve Alton and Jurassic Park and Jaws for sure. You know, it's pretty derivative, but that doesn't make it any less entertaining. The characters again, they're pretty 2D. They're archetypes again, but they are likable and flawed or hateable. In the case of Elgato, he's actually a pretty decent villain. He's a pretty horrible villain, and that works well. You definitely hate him. The writing was solid again, although I think the book could have maybe benefited from kind of a bit of a tighter edit. I think that's what I'd say maybe, and just things like formatting and stuff like that. But again, it's like, that's a niggle. It's not a major flaw in it or anything like that. But yeah, the writing was solid. Certainly the action sequences were well written, things like that. And yeah, as I say, it's just crazy plot, and I applaud that. It's all plot, really. It's a series of ridiculous action set pieces, and I'm not going to complain at that at all. That's why I read this sort of thing. This is what I'm looking for when I pick this sort of thing up. So it definitely delivered. You've got all the Meg stuff, which is hilarious, plus more like fishy ridiculousness. Like coke-fueled great white sharks jumping onto boats, and like someone getting, speared by a flying swordfish and all that kind of ridiculousness. So yeah, very, very, very entertaining. It was fast-paced. It's very short, at just over 100 pages. It was just the right length for this kind of thing. I think it didn't outstay its welcome at all. And so yeah, I'll definitely read more stuff by Navikov. I had a little look, and he seems to have a few books on Kindle Unlimited. He's got a real sense of fun to his writing, and silliness to his writing, and just the right amount of gore as well, I would say. So I'll definitely check out some more of his stuff. So my score for this one then is a 6.5 out of 10. That will go on Storygraph as a 3-star read, and this was a gold trash panda for sure. Absolutely. Couldn't be anything else. Okie dokes. And then the final book that I got through was Horror of the Blood Devils by Tim Curran, or Curran. This is a vampire story, but not your Dracula type vampire. More of a feral, kind of animalistic creature type vampire than Dracula type thing. It's split into 3 parts, and it follows the structure of an old-style Italian horror movie, apparently. Although I don't know a huge amount about Italian horror, so I'll take their word for that. It starts with one character, a character called Dog, who is a marine raider in the jungle of a Pacific island in World War II, who comes up against this ancient evil species of vampire. But thanks to his quick thinking and his training, manages to escape the clutches of these abominable creatures. Then parts 2 and 3 take place about 20 years later in the swamps of an island off the coast of the US, where there's a remote maximum security prison. There's a prison break, and we follow a group of escaped prisoners, as well as the guards sent after them in this swamp. And things basically go to shit pretty quickly. And it's a tense and quite gory tale of survival, or not, from there on out, basically. So yeah, I really enjoyed this one. It was all good, but part 1 of the book, part 1 of the 3, was particularly good, was excellent, actually. The characters were decent in this. Again, not a huge amount of depth to them, but they were clearly drawn, and there was distinctness between the different characters, and there was, some development of kind of relationships between the characters, definitely, in it. The atmosphere in this is where I really liked it. The atmosphere was particularly good in this. Again, especially in the first part of it, but all throughout it, to be honest. It was extremely tense in parts. It's very, very easy to visualize the setting. I got a real sense of the confusing, sort of very oppressive qualities of the jungle and the swamp environments. And yeah, Curran's writing is good, is really good actually in parts. As I say, the first section was great, I think, in parts. His vocabulary and word choice, I think, was excellent. And the way he created such a 3-dimensional sense of atmosphere and setting was spot on. I'd say, especially in that first part. That first part, I think, as I say, it was all good, but that one was definitely elevated above the rest for me. The way that he describes smells and sounds in particular was fantastic, really, really evocative. It's not a long one at, I think it's about 170 pages, thereabouts. Pacing was generally really good throughout, although it did drop a little bit off in part 2 for me, where in the swamps, when it could have just been a little bit tighter perhaps. But again, didn't spoil my enjoyment of it really. The ending maybe I felt was a little bit abrupt. That's kind of, yeah, that's probably what I'd say about it. And there were some scenes in it, this is my only kind of criticism really of it, is there are some scenes with the warden of the prison that kind of speak more to kind of the politics of having a female warden. The difficulties that, a woman might face kind of doing this kind of job, which especially in the sort of this particular era, this is the 1960s, in this particular part of the States, something that's seen as a man's job. And I thought some of these scenes, to be honest, were a bit superfluous. I like that Curran wanted to talk about that element. That's a positive thing. They wanted to kind of write about that. But it just kind of didn't really fit with the rest of the book for me. And it was a bit underdeveloped because of the lack of time that was being able to devoted to it, because you kind of that element of the plot, because most of it is going to be this kind of tense and action sort of stuff in the swamp. So it kind of, if he'd have been able to develop it a bit further, I think it could have been good, but it just felt a little bit kind of tacked on in some respects. But again, didn't ruin anything. It's absolutely, it's fair enough that it's in there. But yeah, I would have just liked to have either sort of seen that saved for something else or developed a little bit further. but I will definitely read more current. In fact, I've already been and like looked at his kind of list of what he's published on Amazon and stuck some more of his in my wish list because there's a lot on Kindle Unlimited. Yeah, he's really good at atmosphere, but you know, based on this, the setting stuff. And he's also really good at the gore as well, because this was pretty damn gory, but it wasn't too much for me, and it was written well. It was just squirmy enough, is what I'd say. So the score for this one then is a 7.5 out of 10. This will go on Storygraph as a 3.5, possibly a 4-star. I'm not quite decided where I sit with that yet. Maybe a 4-star. I did think there was enough in this that I thought, yeah, this is some of this writing is really, really good. And this is a silver trash panda. It's moderately trashy for sure, but it's not quite over the top enough for me to push it into gold trash panda territory. So there we go then. That I had a blast with those three. Trash is always fun. Roll on summer, say I, and to full fat GARBAUGUST, where I will be, gobbling up yet more wonderful trash. So I'll leave it there for today. Thank you very much for watching, folks. As always, do let me know in the comments what you got through for the wasted weekend and give me any recommendations of some good trashy stuff that you found. I will be back on Friday with my thoughts on Childhood's End by Arthur C. Clarke, so I hope you'll join me for that. But from me, for now, that's ta-ra.